If I think myself from my student's perspective, I'll always go on to think as to what goes on in the minds of the examiner while they go on to set questions. Set questions for the PT, set questions for the mains. Now, why is it not that a student can also go on to think in the same manner as an examiner can think like, as a question setter can think like? Now, definitely the students can go on to think in that manner. Our purpose with respect to this topic is essentially to read the mind of the question setter and what they going to think while framing the question. That means reading examiner's mind and reading examiner's thought. How is it that they go ahead in this case? Now, the advantage in this case is that once you happen to know the minds of the examiner, once you happen to know how is it that the examiner goes on to ask a question, and the same topic that you go on to see, the same topic he goes on to see it, he or she, any one of them go on to see it, why is it that different people will go on to have a different type of a notion? Why is it not that you can go on to have a similar type of a notion? Now, why is it that we are discussing this topic and picking up this topic is because of the fact of having worked with, having guided some of the people to set some of these type of questions. Of course, as long as I used to be active with the civil services examination, and how is it that they used to think, and with respect to the same topic, how is it that a student can go to think, a student used to think, and how is it that a question setter can think like. So, beginning from it, the first part is going to be associated with some of these type of topics, as you can go to see on your screen. Now, we begin our discussion with the most important topic in the sense that is one of the topics that is in vogue and one of the topics on which definitely some questions are going to be asked. Now, there is no reward for guessing it. It's going to be on COVID. Now, the questions that can be framed, some of those things that the examiner can go to think of, can people with allergies get vaccinated? The question that can be framed is that consider the following statements with respect to COVID. People with allergy can take vaccination. People with allergy need to be examined first, take an anti-allergy, and then go on to get vaccinated. Third, people cannot go on to take vaccination because their allergy will go on to get aggravated. The fourth option, people can go on to take their allergy because a vaccination will go on to deal with them as well. Now, that's the way that the examiner thinks like. In a similar manner, another topic, can pregnant women take COVID-19 vaccine? And what about lactating mothers? Is it that if a mother goes on to take a vaccination while she is lactating, her child will also go on to develop antibodies, or is it that the child will also go on to get vaccinated automatically? Now, this is how exactly the examiner will think of. Similarly, do someone have enough antibodies after getting vaccinated, or is it that they require to be getting these antibodies? Now, maybe with respect to antibodies, they will go on to ask again a variety of type of questions. Now, one of these type of questions can be associated with the greatest antibodies are going to be the anti-allergy tablets. Second, the greatest antibodies can go on to be associated with certain type of fruits, vitamin C, and so on. Third, the greatest antibodies relate to being happy. The fourth will be the antibodies will be all of those things that are incorporated in a person's lifestyle through the millennium, and so on and so forth. Now, pick up the first one, first pick up the second one, pick up the correct one in this case. That's the way it is going to be. Now, maybe something else as well. Is blood clotting common after taking the vaccine shots? So when we're going to be talking about that, is it that blood clotting is common or not? Then some people going to develop some pain if they have been vaccinated. So is it because of blood clotting? Is it because of infection? Is it because of a certain type of pricks? Is it because of anything else? Is it because of some antibodies? Is it because of a reaction with the blood? Now, that is the type of a question that can be framed. Or else, if someone has contracted COVID, after how many days one can go on to get vaccinated? 10 days, 15 days, 5 days, no limit. Now, all of these are very, very general questions that may go on to cross the minds of a common person. So it also goes on to cross the minds of the examiner, but then the question setter rather, but then the question setter is in a much better position to frame a question out of it, to extract something out of it. And that is one way in which you can go on to read the mind of the examiner. This is one way. And that is going to be one of these topics, that is going to be one of the questions. So in this process, we are picking up some of the most important topic, and how is it that a student will go on to think on this topic, and how is it that a question setter will go on to think on this topic. Second will be, there are always going to be some questions which are going to be associated with new frontiers of science. Now, for example, one of them is going to be associated with artificial intelligence to harness biological, chemical and physical processes and discoveries that are available. So, is it that artificial intelligence refers to the development of an algorithm? Number one. Is it that artificial intelligence offers a certain type of development of a software? Is it that artificial intelligence is connected to a platform called as Angular? Now, these are the type of questions. Maybe you can go on to think of it, that is, with respect to the biological component, with respect to the physical component, or with respect to any one of them, you can go on to pick up some specific niches. For example, artificial intelligence is all about development of a logic, a pro logic in this case, the process of coming to a logic, and that logic is never incorrect. Is this a statement correct? Artificial intelligence goes on to use a lot of microprocessors which are associated with the development of a certain type of computers or semiconductor devices. Artificial intelligence is related to topics which can go on to be very large scale integrated or ultra large scale integrated. Now, of course, there are going to be some of them that are not going to be correct in this case, but if you're preparing for this examination, if you know it, you also going to know whether the concepts and the terminology that I happen to be talking about is going to be correct or not in this case. Now, that is the way that the examiner will go to think of. He is trying to reach your mind. He will go to ask simple questions, but in a somewhat complicated manner. So, your first part lies with how is it to decode it, and how is it that you can actually go to decode that part, and in which manner is it that you can go to decode that part. Pick up another part, that is another topic is going to be detailed real-time mapping of the ocean currents, helps in understanding of how the ocean is going to mix. Now, think of it, detailed real-time mapping of the ocean currents. Now, when we are going to be talking about detailed real-time mapping of the ocean current, then real-time mapping of the rainfall, real-time mapping of the air, real-time mapping of certain things like mountains, real-time mapping of earthquakes, real-time mapping of ocean currents. For how many things there have been real-time mapping? And if it is that there is some real-time mapping, which are the agencies associated with it? For example, if we have to pick up something like a real-time mapping of the rainfall taking place in the whole of the world. Do you know any of those companies or any of these organizations or institutions have developed that? I'll just going to give an example. That is there is Zaxa, right? ZAXA. Of course, you are going to be talking about it. That's one of them. Now, when you are going to be talking about the real-time movement of the winds, it is going to be NASA. And of course, along with it, jet streams, upper air circulation is going to be NOAA. That is to be associated with National Ocean and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA. NASA is National Administration, National Space Administration, both of them being United States. In a similar manner, if you are going to be talking about mixing of the ocean, there will be some of these organizations. Is it going to be a Scripps Institute of Oceanography or so on and so forth? Now, that is one. Second is, if it is that the ocean currents happen to mix with each other, then the mixing of the ocean currents are marked by certain things, and that is going to be identified as 1, 2, 3, 4. That is, the color of the ocean will be different, the temperature of the currents will be different, the mixing will be different, there will be a lot of fog, and so on and so forth. There can be another part as well. That is, a real-time mapping of the ocean current will go on to lead to mapping of the thermohaline circulation, and thermohaline circulation will go on to also mean that how is it that the ocean body is going to churn themselves up and down, down and up, and so on and so forth. That is going to be another component associated with it. So this is the way the examiner will go on to think in this case. How is it that the ocean is going to mix is also going to be associated with water masses. And maybe a common question that can go on to cross the minds of the examiner in this case is that is when similar density water bodies mix, is it that they will go on to lead to one same type of water mass, similar density of ocean currents, higher density of water masses, lower density of water masses, and you will be completely zapped. I mean, how is it that one can go to answer that? But then, these examiners are tyrant people. They go on to try to torture young people, innocent people like you. We all go to know that. I also go to know that part. But then that is their genetic makeup. We can't help it. So we have to accept it the way that is going to be. So new frontiers of sciences, if that is going to be a type of a topic, the whole of this topic, then you can be asked a question on molecular and genome evolution as well, comparative genomics as well, and some of these people who are best known for some of these things as with genomics. For example, when we are talking about genomics, we are talking about some of the components which are associated with what exactly is the makeup of the human body, and how many of these DNAs, which are the organizations associated with it. Now, this is the way that the examiner will think of. Taking it further, one of them is also going to be evolutionary biology of infectious diseases. Now, infectious diseases like corona, you can go on to be SARS, it can go on to be AIDS, it can be HIV, a lot of them. Evolutionary biology, that is how is it that they go on to evolve, and from where is it that they evolved. Maybe the examiner, the question setter will go on to think of in a separate manner. For example, biologically, how is it that COVID may have evolved? Think of it. Biologically, what would have happened was, of course, that's not correct, but biologically, what would have happened was, human beings were responsible for degrading the habitats, so the habitats shrunk. Now, as the habitats shrunk, all of the bats came in contact with the animals in that region. Now, bats feed on the blood of these animals. Now, coming close means, if the bats were affected by some type of a disease, then they were in a much more capable position to transmit that type of a disease to these animals. And these animals got this disease, got this infection because they were lying in close proximity. Some time back, when the forest used to be larger, then they were very far away from each other, distance from each other. So the animals got infected rather. These infected animals were picked up by some people who were fond of eating these animals. Now, of course, we in India, we don't go to eat bats, we don't go to eat foxes, we don't go to eat rabbits, we don't go to eat dogs. Of course, there will be some people who will be eating all what they belong to different cultures. So, they were picked up. And when they were picked up, then they were taken to the slaughterhouse. In the slaughterhouse, someone went to hack them. Now, they had some type of bruise or a cut. And these infected animals transmitted that infection to the bruises and the cuts. Now, as it is that they were transferred, so the one person got infected. Only one person to begin with was infected first. And while he was infected, he was able to transmit it to someone else. Of course, because it could be transmitted through sneeze, it could be transmitted through breathe, it can be transmitted through a variety of means. Now, you know so much about COVID right now. And this is how exactly it started getting itself transmitted from one family, from one person to one family to another family, another to another, another to another, and then the whole of the world got infected. Generally, that is a biological reason for it. Now, it's very known fact that all of these viruses were manufactured in a laboratory. They are synthetic. And there was a nefarious design which you see it unlocking right now. China wants to become a superpower, and it had tools like economy was one of the tools in this case. Second was the bioterrorism was another tool. Military was another tool. The fourth was the coup, one of those type of coup that happened in Afghanistan recently, and several such type of disturbances that they are bound to create in different countries in different ways. So that is how exactly the examiner will think of, because the person who is setting your question, he is much better informed, and he will start thinking about correlating a lot of facts in this case, and is this correlationship that will be brought to you in by way of your question paper. Then modern technology and scientific tools in biology. What are all of those type of tools? For example, as and when you can go to think of it, there was a new eye in medicine, which were these type of eyes. MRI was one of those type of eye. CAT scanning, that is a computed tomography, was going to be one of those type of eyes. So what are those type of eyes? Is it that someone can go to insert certain type of molecules in your blood, and then the color of your blood will go to change, and then the color of this blood can go to be traced and tracked, and accordingly you can go to know what all that is happening. So there is modern technology, neural biological explanation of sleep, and that can be correlated. This is the new type of a research that is taking place, neurobiological explanation of sleep. Why is it that the person sleeps? How is it that the dreams come? How is it that the dreams can be interpreted as well? Now, not to go deep into it, but these are going to be some of the type of topics, along with symbiosis in the parasites. It's not that only the human beings going to be affected by such type of a symbiosis, but parasites as well are going to be affected in this manner. So, one of those topics can go on to be new frontiers in science, and on new frontiers of science, how is it that an examiner can go on to think of? That's one. Go for the second topic. This second topic is going to be minimalistic living. Now, following COVID, this has been one of the topics that has been in vogue as we are talking about minimalistic living, because it is through minimalistic living that we can go to manage a lot of things in the world. Now, it is now a known fact that this consumerist world will not go to take us anywhere at all. This consumerist world is not going to be taking us anywhere in the world. And it is because of our greedy nature that we are putting ourselves more and more amount of a problem, in more problem, greater problem, and so on and so forth. So, minimalistic living has been all in all India's management. And one can think of that is before the ugly looking Mughals and these ugly looking Central Asian invaders came to India, India was a very, very well organized country, very well organized country. You can imagine that in India, kings used to be artists, kings used to be singers, kings used to be mathematicians, kings used to be scholars, academicians, kings used to be rishi of sorts, and so on and so forth. It's only now that Indian character has changed, particularly after 1200 AD, and by 1500 it had started changing, and it had started going through entropy, and right now you won't find anyone like Indians in the whole of the world. And you can go on to make a guess of any type of interpretation that you can go on to think of making about it. So, India's management at that point of time, why is it not? Is it not India used to be affected by some type of an epidemic? Yes. Is it not India used to be affected by certain type of floods, certain type of droughts? But is it that there have been documented evidence of it? Answer is absolutely no. Despite the fact that we have been able to map the whole of the astronomical atlas, we have been able to map what not type of thing. We have been able to map the entire of the sky, the entire of the universe. Flood and drought were going to be easy. We were one of the first to map the supernova explosion that took place, and that how is it that for 6-7 days there was no night at all. We were able to do it so. So that is why India's management had become very important, and the whole of the world had started recognizing it. But for the purpose of branding, they are not taking India's name. They will keep on packaging it themselves. They will not go to take. They will go to follow everything that had been talked about by in India some 1,000 years back, but they will not go to take name. So, what are the topics that can go to be included as a part of it? One of them is going to be immunity management. There is a, how is it that a person can go to manage immunity? Is it that immunity is going to be managed only with the help of what we call as a only with the help of medicines, or is it that immunity can be managed naturally as well with certain type of a diet as well? Maybe that the examiner in this case will go to give you 3 or 4 questions. That is, for building immunity, consider the following diet: 1, 2, 3, 4. And when it goes on to give you certain type of a diet, and you have to pick up one of them as a correct answer, now that is how the examiner will think of. In health services, in health sector, and it's offered for cheaper health services in the whole of the world, and its advantages. For example, how we used to be always preventive in nature, and certain type of medicines that have evolved in this place. For example, we're going to talk about naturopathy, we're going to be talking about Ayurveda, we're going to be talking about a variety of type of food and seasons of food, time of food, and things like that. Food was a medicine, and not exactly that. It used to be food like what youngsters of today go on to be talking about pizza and whatnot, all of those type of things. But then this is not a food. This is something to make you sick. But then, of course, you will be all aware of the fact that there is a cartel that goes on to try to make you sick through diet. And then there is another cartel that goes on to give you medicine. There is another cartel that says that is by giving this medicine, you're going to get them infected with certain type of a disease. So you're going to get affected by another type of a disease, and then another, and throughout the whole of the life, you keep on fighting this type of a disease, and for no rhyme or reason. Now that is going to be we are talking about the health sector, and it is offered for cheaper health services in the whole of the world. Why is it that India's health services are cheaper? What are the forms of the health services that India goes on to offer? What are the advantages, some of the type of health services that India goes on to offer? What makes India a destination? What exactly is the comparative price? What is the data with respect to that? Why is it that some people go on to come for in India, they happen to come for a certain type of a tourism, medical tourism, for example, and who are the people maximum who go on to come for certain type of medical tourism in the country, and what exactly are the advantages that India offers in this case? Then resetting living in life, how one can go on to reset that part, and of course associated with it, food management. It is part of food management that you're going to talk about role of herbs and preventive medicine like kalonji, like turmeric, like tulsi, use of leaf plates. So, for example, one of these questions that can be framed is one of these countries recently acquired the so-called technology of making leaf plates, and it is institutionalized. Can you imagine which country? It's Germany. Then one of the first countries to have a patented turmeric. Of course, we may have got it back. But then one of the first countries to have patented turmeric. Why? And not only turmeric. There is one cow, the only cow in the world whose milk is digestible. There is only one cow in the whole of the world whose milk goes on to have a reasonable amount of an iron. Can you name that cow? Vaichur. That is found in Kerala. It's a very short cow. Now that is a part of it. That is a part of medicine. It is taken as a medicine. So what are the advantages associated with cow milk and certain things like that of a ghee of the cow? What are the advantages associated with it? So you're going to talk about certain things like a kalonji, and a kalonji is it's the seed of a kalonji. That is what it is going to be called as. It has the only thing it cannot go to treat is death. This is what is known for this is what exactly it is going to be known for in India. The only thing it cannot go to treat of it is going to be death. This is what exactly is known for in Rajasthan, and now the whole of the country as well. You will going to find that is when the women used to be pregnant, then they used to be given a kadha of kalonji, because of course, that was the type of a medicine, and these are the advantages associated with it. Then associated with minimalistic living is also some of the disadvantages of the modern concrete buildings, like modern concrete buildings which go to absorb heat. They have a asphalt house, they are made of concrete, they absorb heat, and they absorb so much amount of heat that they are bound to be radiating it back once again. And when they're going to be radiating it, of course, they are responsible for building this heat into the atmosphere. So with respect to building designs, different states have a building design. For example, in Sikkim there used to be IKEA. Now IKEA used to be offering a lot of advantages in this case. For example, the building was made in such a manner that it can go to withstand even 8.9 on the Richter scale of earthquakes as well. Now, that is one of the building design. Bhuj was going to be known for one of these type of building designs, and so on and so forth. So, how is it that the roof were constructed? What was the purpose of the construction of the courtyard? What are the different types of material of which the roof is constructed? What was the material which used to be used in the ancient buildings for the purpose of keeping the houses clean, cool, and maybe even germ-free as well? For example, how is it that the people used to be cleaning their floor, and they cleaning their floor with the help of citronella? If you keep on cleaning it, let's say if you're going to be having marble and keep on cleaning it, can you imagine what you can go to do to the floor? The floor will start shining. That's number one. And second is that it will not go on to get infested with mosquitoes at all. Now this is going to be one of them. Now there are going to be a lot of advantages associated with it, and in minimalistic living, and we are talking about that is in last year or so, in the last so many of these years or so, this is what is going to be happening right now as well. We all know that the examination has got itself delayed, and a good number of information that has bombarded us through net and through other facts, through government policies, and through the recognition of a lot of things that has still not been documented in any type of book. And the examiner will go to assume that you have an awareness level that is high enough in this case and for this purpose as well. In a similar manner, how is it that this type of minimalistic living can go on to lead to a version of a well-deserved economy as well, and to what extent it can go on to lower the cost of economy also? That is going to be another topic. From international relations, the questions are generally going to be connected to or set in a manner as what will be the posturing? I mean, international posturing, like what will be the posturing of China, what will be the posturing of India, what will be the posturing of United States, and so on and so forth, and maybe any location associated with it, or maybe some characteristics associated with those type of posturings. For example, one of these posturings that we happen to know is about quadrilateral dialogue. So if it is going to be quadrilateral dialogue, then the examiner, the question setter will start thinking in terms of is it that the students know when exactly was it set up? They will start thinking in terms of, is it that the students know that how is it that the concept evolved? Where exactly is it that it evolved? Was it in Japan? Was it in Southeast Asia? Was it against China? Or is it going to be just a congregation of some like-minded countries who came together? It's only now that it has been against China or sorts. Of course, they won't want to ask you anything associated with analysis whether it is against China or against United States or for that matter any country. But then when exactly was the Quad formed? What are those type of alliances related to it? For example, Trans-Asia Cooperation, something of that sort. ASEAN, its relationship with ASEAN. The exercises of Quad, the first exercise where it took place, where exactly this conception took place, how has been its development, and in the latest exercise of Quad, where exactly was it held? Was it held in Malabar? Was it held in Japan? Was it held in South China Sea or any of these places? And in this exercise, what was the most exceptional and extraordinary event, or maybe the characteristic of the Quad? And when we talk about exceptional characteristics or characteristic of Quad, then it basically talks about that how many frigates, how many aircraft carriers, which were the aircraft carrier from India, with how many destroyers from India, and which type of destroyers, Kilo class or Silo class, whatever it may have been of sorts. That is what exactly requires to be discussed in this case, and that is how exactly the students required to know that as well. So, members of Quad, who are these people, who are these members who have taken a viewpoint that may have been a bit of a contradictory, and so on and so forth. That's one of them. That will be the thinking of the examiner in this case. How is it that even the Malabar exercise took place and evolved? What is the basic reason, rationale of holding Malabar exercise, and in that region, what could be the basic principles that govern Malabar exercise, to what extent the satellites are going to be used and which countries' satellites are going to be used in this case. Second is, as you can go to understand it, that is going to be related to Afghanistan. That's the second topic, Afghanistan and its related developments. For example, the most recent development has been that Taliban has been on a rampage in this case, and it has controlled the whole of the country. Now, in an analytical manner, you think of all of these aspects. Of course, you must be in a position to think of it as well. It's very, very simple. Why exactly it happened? It happened that a lot of Islamic countries were hand in glove to each other. They were funding Taliban heavily. They were having a posture or a stance that they are very bigger, they will go on to help United States, and that they will go on to be always working against terrorism while they all were together. So, the US was defeated by Pakistan, which never fired even a single gun shot. It was only on the basis of a stabbing in the back, as is Pakistan always. Same it was the Afghanistan army. Same has been the case with entire of the Islamic world. None of them have criticized this part. And the Afghan refugees will now go on to be, there will be refugees, some of them that will be created, and a good number of these refugees that will be created, they will find their way into non-Islamic countries. Why not in Islamic countries? Because Islamic countries in any case have gone to become from 3 to 57, and now their aim is to make it the whole of the world. So they want to get themselves inserted in every country possible. This is going to be one of the ways, whatever it takes of it. Now this is the broad skeletal of the development that has taken place in Afghanistan. And there is absolutely no way that anyone can go to deny it. Maybe there will be a lot of TV debates here, there, what India should have done, what United States should have done, and so on and so forth. All of these things, everything is relevant. The most relevant part from your aspect is, of course, this was an analytical aspect, and everyone understands this part. That is, which are the places in Afghanistan that are significant here? So, which are the most important places? Now, India had extended itself from Chabahar to Jaranjan to Dilaram. These have been the two places where India had a net interest, at least in terms of projects. All the projects that India was making in Afghanistan, including construction of some of the dams over Afghanistan as well. That's one. The mountains of Afghanistan, Khyber, Bolan, Hindu Kush, the meaning of all of these, the biodiversity associated with those type of mountains as well, the meaning and how is it that they have been called by this name. The third has been the places like that of Bagaram, that is one of those type of bases that United States left. Second has been Mazar-e-Sharif, and so on and so forth. How is it that they are going to be connected? Which of them go on to be on a Turkmenistan, Afghanistan, Pakistan, India pipeline? Of course, it has been a non-starter of sorts, but which of them happen to be there? Which of them happen to be on Chabahar to Jaranj, Dilaram, and how is it that they're going to be taking it to Turkmenistan as well and to Caspian Sea as well? Which are the countries that are going to be bordering Afghanistan? What is the relationship of it is Tajikistan? What exactly is Wakhan corridor in this case? And with how many countries? How is it that a corridor has been made with respect to it? This is one of these corridors. What exactly is Durand Line? Who are the people who are going to be living? Where exactly is it that the Pashtuns going to live? Where is it that the Pathans going to live? Right, and so on, so forth, and related aspects. So, an examiner will, the moment the topic goes into flush in the minds of the examiner will go to think of all of this, because I am thinking in terms of examiner, and that's how exactly that I am transferring it to you. The third is India as a net security provider and advantages of it. Of course, advantages of a blue water navy. That is what exactly goes on to make India a blue water navy? Is it that India is a blue water navy? Now, when you start talking about posturing of India, that India wants to project itself as a blue water navy, then one of the most important components is going to be our projection, then alliance projection. That's going to be the second one. The third is the satellite communication. How many satellites that you are using to engage itself in a blue water navy. The fourth is going to be an aircraft carrier, and that too of what type aircraft carrier. It's like a veritable city in the midst of an ocean. That's going to be another one. How many, the aircraft carrier is going to be aided by how many frigates, how many destroyers, what are frigates, what are destroyers, and of course it is going to be aided also by submarines. So what type of submarines? Can they be diesel submarines or can they be nuclear submarines? The advantage of the diesel submarines, the advantage of the nuclear submarines. Now, what exactly is the formation? What are the types of formation in the sea? How is it that these formations going to move? How is it that they're going to communicate? Which are the type of satellites that allows them to be communicating with each other in this case? So, everything combined goes on to make it a blue water navy. And once it is going to be blue water navy, then how is it that this blue water navy is going to be connected to, correlated to some aspects and some of these things like that of some international posturing and some type of foreign policy components as well. Of course, satellite technology is also a part of it. What type of aeroplanes are going to be used for the landing on an aircraft carrier? Whether they are going to be of a Harrier type, whether they are going to be jet driven, whether they are going to be propeller driven, the type of helicopters, and the basic changes that has taken place in the design of Vikrant, the one that we have. Of course, not the confidential type of changes. We will never come to know of it. Now, this is the way that you have to think of when you are preparing for this topic here. Now, we understand that we cannot going to pick up all the topics associated with it, but we are picking up as many topics as possible so that you can actually go on to make up what exactly goes on in the minds of the examiner who try to frame such type of questions. So, how is it that and in which way is it that they can go to frame these type of questions? In a similar manner, you can go to pick up China's increased aggression in the South China Sea and its likely impact. What exactly are the pitfalls of China being located in that region? How is it that they are located? Have they constructed artificial island? Now, when you are going to be talking about artificial island, then these artificial islands have been coral islands or they have been rocky islands. And which are the type of ships that China has kept in that region? Which are those type of islands which they have captured, which they going to be, of course, is partly and partially are going to be one of them. Which are the choke points which they going to be guarding, all in this case. So when they are going to be talking about it, when they're going to pick up all of these aspects, it becomes easy. How is it that they're going to track the entire of the South China Sea through a satellite and satellite technology? And so pick up another part. That is a Chinese strategy of surrounding India, and of course China wants to surround India from every possible side. China's strategy is that if India can be strangulated, Chinese go on to fight a war in a very, very different manner. And how is it that the Chinese going to fight a war? Don't like to fight a war in a very straightforward, direct, hard power form. And why is it so that they don't like to fight a war in this manner? They don't like to fight a war in this manner because they know that they can go to strangulate a country. If you're liberal, then they will go on to bribe some of the liberals and they will go on to become super liberals. India has so many of them who go on to go against the interests of the country. If you have a media that is free, then they're going to buy out some media houses. You know that there are some of these media houses completely under the control of the Chinese, where you're going to find people like Bhavish Kumar and so on and so forth, who always going to be making an anti-India rant, anti-national rant, and one of those channels named after New Delhi itself, and so on. You know that part very well. So completely, because internationally they are known that is it's Politburo members who have made some type of investment in those type of channels. That is going to be another part associated with it. The third is, of course, perception management, information management. China is going to fight a war in a variety of ways. So one of those type of tricks and techniques that they have applied on India is to strangulate India and going to completely squeeze it. They are doing it so, and they are doing it, and people of India are helping Chinese in this case, helping Chinese, helping Pakistanis, both of them in a completely open manner. Now understand that part. China also goes on to be surrounding India from every possible side, picking up certain things like Chittagong, Chandigarh, Narkundam, Hambantota, Colombo, you have Gwadar, all of these places. And of course, forget Zivati as well in this case. Now, where are they? How is it that they are going to be distancing themselves? How is it that what is the amount of a distance that China has from here to maybe to Maldives, to Seychelles, to Madagascar, to Reunion? Location, where exactly are they located? How is it that they are arranged not to south or west to east? What are the special facilities that have been accorded to them by the Chinese in this case? And now, once we have known that, then what are special characteristics otherwise of it? Is it that Gwadar lies in a Pashtun territory, or it goes on to be lying in Balochistan? Now, this is going to be significant in this case, and it is this significance that is going to be significant and important as well. So, that's a special facility. The last part is that is Prime Minister Modi has India for the first time chaired a UNSC meeting on maritime security. So what exactly is maritime security? What are the components of maritime sovereignty? And how is it that India seeks to address it? There will be a lot of questions on Indian Ocean, particularly on Indian Ocean topography, particularly on the Indian Ocean climate, particularly related to Madden-Julian oscillation, Indian Ocean dipole, Somalian current, Arabian Sea current, the small currents of this region. There are going to be a lot of questions in this case. Small islands and the arrangement of it, Maldives and Lakshadweep and so on and so forth. That's the way, that is the way that one has to be approaching these regions as well. And that's the best way that one can go to approach it. So, when you are talking about, again, international posturing, because that is going to be a good number, that's a topic that is going to be a good number of questions going to be asked on that. The components of maritime security, then framing a post-COVID international order. So, can the vaccine be good for Quad governments to evolve? How is it that, what is the degree of a trade that is taking place in the Quad countries? Which are the type of vaccines all of these countries are going to be using in this case, implementing India's defense capabilities, and with what? What are the gaps that are left in India's defense capabilities, and how is it that India itself can go to supplement it? What makes a free Indo-Pacific? Of course, it has been now called as a Indo-Pacific, not South Pacific. And one can understand the vision of President Trump in this case, who has completely changed the brand of this region, Indo-Pacific. So now India has a Indo-Pacific region. You have a Indian Ocean itself in this case. Then counter-terrorism tabletop exercises as well. That is with respect to internal security and all of those type of challenges that India is facing with respect to counter-terrorism. Like how is it that India is dealing with the Muslim sleeper cells? They are the one who are going to make a lot of sleeper cells in this region. How is it that the slaughter economy goes on to be working, and how is it that the funding goes on to finding its way in different places? Now, when we are going to be talking about some of these fundings, the concept is what is going to be important for you. If you don't going to be having a concept associated with it, you will going to find it problematic in trying to deal with some of these type of international posturing. And the last component of this international posturing has to do with India-China conflict. As you can go to pick it up, India-China conflict, one of them will be associated with the troop movement. For example, India's troop movement can go to take place through one road, maybe one feeder road or many feeder roads. One. Chinese is going to be one feeder road or many feeder roads. There's going to one. Then all of the locations that you're going to see on this map here, that is you are talking about the Depsang plains in this case here, all of those regions, Ladakh, Daulat Beg, Uldi, then you have Galwan Valley, Leh, Darshuk, Shyok. Now that will go on to mean that you have to know about almost all of them. Now, Daulat Beg Oldie is the northern tip of the western sector with the villages of Shok and Darbuka towards the southern region. And Pangong so is strategically crucial and very close to that of Chushul Valley. Anyone who can go on to control Chushul Valley, can they go on to control the whole of Pangong so? The answer is now. That's the curiosity part of it. We can go on to understand it. That is, what are these fingers? Finger 4, finger 3, finger 5, finger 6, finger 8, and why is it such type of fingers have been constructed? So you have Pangong So as well. What is the meaning of So? You have So Murari as well. How many of these So's are going to be there in that region? And not only that, why is it that the water doesn't go to freeze even in the extreme of the winters at minus 30 degree centigrade as well during this time? And what are the modes and methods that are associated with India, that are with India, in order to control some of these type of territories as well in this case? So that's one. And then from north to south, arrange these regions, arrange these places: Daulat Beg Oldie, Leh, Shok, Darbuk, or maybe Depsang Plains, Galwan, Shok, and Darbuk. One can be from west to east. It can go on to be Kargil, Daulat Beg Oldie, Leh, and so on. Now, the rivers that are going to be insignificant here, for example, Galwan is a river, Jaskar is a river, Leh is a river in this place. Now, this is the way that is the examiner will go on to think of it. He will go on to think in multi-dimensional manner, and it is this multi-dimensional manner, the way that he goes on to think, that is what is going to be more significant. And if you start thinking in this manner, then it's unlikely that you will be able to miss out on any type of a topic. That's very, very unlikely. So we have talked about another of this place, that is international positioning. Second is going to be associated with animals. There are always going to be some of these questions that are going to be asked from animals, and we are going to be picking up this as case as well. Now, a good number of animals have been in news. And why is it that they have been in news? They have been in news because of a variety of regions. For example, pick up the case from below. There is humpback mashir. That is going to be one of those animals and which has been used, which is making a lot of rounds in this case. It's a very unique type of an animal. Hangul is going to be another one. Cheetah is being reintroduced. So everything about cheetah. So when you're going to be talking about cheetah, you are definitely going to be talking about Rewa. You are going to be talked about Sarguza, some of the places where hunting had taken place, and that has made the cheetah extinct. Then the morphology of the cheetah, what makes cheetah to run fast on and to get itself adapted in this region, that is going to be third component. What are the morphological characteristics of it? Why is it that the cheetah is adapted to running fast? Which are the areas, which are the savanna areas in India where the cheetah can actually be introduced? And what will require for the purpose of a reintroduction of the cheetah in this region as well? Now, other than that, you can think of that is how is it that this cheetah is going to be different from the cheetah that we used to be having some time back itself? How is it that they were different? Now, having talked about that, you will also going to find that there is another of this animal. This animal is going to be in the ocean. That is a scaly-foot snail, is one of the strangest creatures. That is available something at about 2,300 meters of a depth. And near to about hydrothermal vents. Now, when we are going to be talking about these hydrothermal vents, you will understand that we are effectively going to be talking about some regions and some places which are going to be very, very important here. For example, what exactly are hydrothermal vents in this case? How is it that they are significant? Now, hydrothermal vents are going to be another topic from which a question can be asked. And they are essentially vents that are going to be found on the floor of the ocean from which volcanic eruption takes place, but not in the form of a solid lava, but in the form of a real hot water. That's the reason it is called as hydro. That's the basic name, hydro. And of course, a scaly-foot snail is going to be part of it. That's the reason that they evolved. That's the place that is going to be living. They're found in Indian Ocean, not exactly in Pacific. They have not been found so far in the Pacific, not found in Atlantic. Now, you can understand it from a third angle as well. Now, when we are going to be talking about them, then and they're not found in Pacific. So what are the special characteristics of Pacific as well? Because anytime the examiner starts thinking about it, they're going to think that let's check whether the students happen to know about some of these special animals which are found in such a depth in the Pacific as well. So one of them is going to be deep sea gulper in this place. Now it is a small animal which has a mouth that is 6 times bigger than the entire of the body, because that remains there in that place, and as it remains there, it goes on to have a meal once in a year of sorts in this place. Now, in those type of deep sea conditions, so what are the adaptations some of these animals can go on to be having it? And one of these basic adaptations in this case is related to bioluminescence. That means they emit light from their body, and when they're going to be emitting light, that is the way that they're going to attract. Now, anything that is going to be attractive, that is really fatal. You must remember that in nature is almost always like that. Now, these deep foot snails, that is scaly foot snails that we're going to be calling as they have developed this remarkable form of protection against crushing and grim conditions found at these Stygian depths, and they're going to go shells made of iron. Now, Chinese discovered them, and after having discovered them, they have started thinking truants. That is, how to use them, and maybe use them for the purpose of helping humans also to grow some of these type of shells made of iron. Now, these scaly foot snails can be used for the purpose of, if the Chinese can go on to think of some type of a coverage and certain type of a protection for the human being who can also start growing some of these type of iron incrustations on their body. That is why exactly it has been important. Now, other than that, of course, all of these good number of animals are going to be important. For example, a python is important this year. That is, a black mamba is going to be important in this year's point of view. Now, pythons largely because the world has seen no less than something like some 6-7 python attacks. Pythons are generally very laid back animals of sorts. And a black mamba has been associated largely because it has been filmed, and of course it has made a comparison with black cobra, some new type of cobra in some regions, and there has been a comparison. And with respect to black mamba, you can be asked out, is it that its color is going to be black, or is it that its color is going to be gray, or why is it going to be called as a black mamba of sorts? Now, this is the way that the questions can be framed with respect to animals also. Another of this case here, that is the places, all the type of places that can be possibly asked to you. Some of these places which have been news and that have been doing rounds. One has been Suez Canal, and you know why exactly is it that Suez Canal has been in news. Now, Suez Canal has been news because there was a ship that was struck. So what was this ship? Was it a tanker? Was it a carrier? Was it a freighter? So was it a large scale? Was it ultra large scale? And what were the conditions? So was it a dust storm? So is it that dust storms are so powerful that can go to tilt the ship? Now, is it that the Suez Canal is going to be shallow enough to allow some of these type of ships to get struck in that region? How is it that the ships, when they're sailing straight, they can't go on to get themselves struck in this place here? Now, what are the basic characteristics, and with what speed is it that some of these type of ships going to sail through in the whole of the Suez Canal? That is going to be one of these places. And not only Suez, the examiners will go on to think in a different manner when they kind of knows about Suez. Only last year they happened to know something about another of this canal that was called as Kra Canal. And when we are going to be talking about Kra Canal, that goes on to make it another of sorts. Kra is going to be another that is going to be connecting South China Sea with Andaman Sea. So what are the issues involved with it? So not only is it that they will going to confine themselves onto Suez. Then Reunion Islands. Now Reunion Islands have been in news largely because of two reasons. One of them has been because of the fact that this is one of those places where the French went on to have one of the exercises, naval exercise. India and France had it in Reunion Island. That is one. Now, Reunion had also been known because at least after a gap of some 20-24 years, there had been some amount of rainfall, and the rainfall intensity, the highest amount of rainfall intensity for the first time was recorded in Reunion Island itself. Of course, thereafter, Mumbai went on to surpass that part. Reunion is a volcanic island, and when you are going to be talking about Reunion, of course, the examiner will also going to talk about Diego Garcia as well in this case. And why is it that the Reunion is significant and Diego Garcia is significant? What are the basic issues associated with Diego Garcia? Because Mauritius has started clamoring for Diego Garcia even more of sorts. That is Reunion. Now take the case of Patagonia. Patagonia is in the southern part of South America, and Patagonia has been used for three reasons. One of them has been that there have been some of the lakes which have turned fluorescent, not blue but pink, the whole of this region. So why is it that they can go to turn fluorescent pink in that region? Number one. What are the other characteristics associated with it? So that is going to be one of those places which goes on to also be having a what we're going to be calling it as a leopard effect, because you're going to find red spots, black black, red, here, there, everywhere. That is going to be in the form of a spot in Patagonia. Patagonia is going to be a desert like that of which of these regions in the world. That is going to be another part associated with it. Now, these are the type of topics which will cross the examiner's mind. There is going to be Antarctica. Antarctica has been significant for all the regions because of opening of an airport, because of two icebergs that who were able to detach themselves from Antarctica, because of a new type of research that took place on the Antarctic circumpolar current as well, because a new type of research that took place about the depth of the warm water in the Antarctic region as well, because of at least two major blizzards that took place in Antarctic. Now, everything will go on to come under this scanner of a question that can possibly be asked here. That is a part of it. We have talked about Bagaram and Mazar-e-Sharif, and that was in relation to Afghanistan. That is where we talked about it. Coming to the other section. That is one of the most important section which from where questions are going to be asked more and more to you. And this is largely because there has been so much amount of a talk about what have been all the type of wrongs associated with Indian history, and how is it that one can go on to correct Indian history. Correct, that means, all of these incorrections, anything that you have studied about Indian history must have been wrong. Of course, you are not going to be testing on what exactly is known as right, because you don't know that part. So, that is what has been right and what has been news is going to be part of a question for you, because the examiner's contention will be to see whether you are interested in these things or not. And you must be interested because you are interested in the country. That will going to test your curiosity level as well. So to begin with, at least two instances had taken place in India which go on to strengthen the fact that the Wright brothers were not the first one to have tested an aeroplane. It was Bapuji Talpade. It was in Pune, and he tested an aeroplane in 1860s for the first time. And of course, India has not been a Western country that could go on to publicize it and that can go on to propagate it, and they were not able to. And of course, India was under the British rule at that point of time. So British selectively, and of course, they're very, very, very jealous of India, and because of its culture, because of its intelligence, because of its type of technology that India was using. So they had a vested interest in allowing the devastation of the technology, devastation of the people, devastation of the economy, and they did it by dividing the people. They never took anything else. It was not about by army and so on and so forth. They only did it by dividing people. They divided the people on the caste lines. Caste was something that was alien to India. They were the one who inserted caste in India. And since then, Indians have been so zealot about caste that everyone talks about their caste only. So, that is one part. Of course, it's a small part. He was from Pune. The flight took place in Mumbai, and so on. Not too many questions associated with it. Then there have been a lot of fake narratives about India, and DNA studies have been conducted, which have been Tartu University, Finland. 1,300 samples from India across north, south, east, west, everywhere, and they're going to say that all of them have a common ancestry. So all of those people who talked about the so-called Aryans or so-called Dravidians, everything has been completely rubbished in this case, completely rubbished. So the findings of this report can go on to become a part of your question exercise. Now, Indus Valley seals contain photographic symbols, and of course, Indus Valley questions are going to be always favorite. We talked about in one of these series as well. And they contain photographic symbols that are very similar to modern day scientific method symbols used in nuclear science and astrophysics. So was it that it was so developed? There have been definite signs associated with it. Now, why is it that we don't know? Because a good number of scriptures that were discovered from Indus Valley civilizations here and there, some of them were kept in Nalanda University. They have been burnt. They have been either looted, they have been destroyed, or they have been burnt. So they have been burnt, they have been looted, and they have been camouflaged by the British, who never wanted that Indians should go on to feel pride about their past. Then we talked about that some of these universities were burnt. For example, Nalanda University was burnt by, we talked about that ugly looking Muslim invaders who came from Central Asia, from Pakistan side, and so on and so forth, like Khilji. Khilji was the one, and when he burnt more than 1 lakh books, who knows, I mean, all of these were buried in that place itself. He chopped off the heads of no less than 600 scholars. You can imagine the pain that India had gone through in the hands of these Muslim invaders here. And you know it very well that way. Now, all of these seals that convey the scientific concept from Vedas about cosmology and particle physics, and that is a part of it. Now, Rishi Ananya had been one of them who talked about all of these molecules, particle physics, and whatnot. Need to know that. That is what has been his contribution that will go on to become part of history, although this is something that is going to be completely hidden of sorts. Then you also go to pick up some of these names in Indian history, and these names in Indian history go on to be associated with so many of these people. For example, one of them has been Tipu Sultan, because he has been in news. Tipu Sultan has been in news, and it has been news because some of film actors like Shah Rukh Khan were out to eulogize him, out to elevate him to a demigod status. And of course, this is what exactly has been done with respect to a good number of Mughal and Muslim rulers in India. Just for example, Shah Jahan was one who ultimately built a Taj Mahal on a temple. New York Times and other researchers have confirmed that portion. You will come to know. Of course, this is a question that is not going to be asked right now, but maybe 2 years, 3 years later on, that is going to be asked here. Can you imagine that he ultimately, after the death of his wife, married his daughter? Married his daughter. You can imagine the character of these rulers who can go on to marry their daughters as well. That was the value that they were carrying. Now, this has been completely camouflaged because Indians would have known it. Now, Indians go on to be painting Shah Jahan in a very, very high picture of sorts. So, all of these things were hidden. Now, they are coming up, surfacing up, surfacing up. So, he destroyed many temples, destroyed many ports of India, economy of India, and of course, he was a good military ruler that way. He was able to plunder the whole of the Hindu temple wealth and confiscated them before 1790, and that is how he was able to run as well. That's one example. Tipu Sultan and the conquest of Tipu Sultan. For example, Tipu Sultan was one who ultimately moved from Seringamapatnam to Madikeri, that has been Coorg district, and from there to Bekal Fort, that is where he was able to control it for a good amount of a time till he was defeated by the British at that amount of time. Now, these have been the 3 places. So, when you know about Tipu Sultan, because Tipu Sultan has been news, that's why you need to know that. But then you need to know about Seringamapatnam, and Seringamapatnam location of it. Is it going to be in Kaveri? And then you're going to be talking Madikeri, and Madikeri is going to be at the confluence of 2-3 rivers of Kaveri as well. That is Suvarnavati, Hemvati, Kaveri, all of these and are going to be the 3 tributaries of Kaveri going to merge in this region, and there are going to be some islands as well, Kabini Islands, for example. Now, this was a place where this person ruled. This terrorist, Tipu Sultan, used to rule by and large, and he was able to torture the Indians in that place. Then pick up Raja Mahendravarman. Now, when we are going to be talking about Raja Mahendravarman was the one who single-handedly destroyed the Dutch conquest in India. Now, we are talking about a single-handedly destroyed all of those things that the Dutch used to stand for. So much so that the Dutch never could emerge out of it. There have been two powers in the whole of the world who were the biggest naval power. What you have been taught is that is the British were the biggest naval power. What you have not been taught is Raja Mahendravarman was one, and the other way the Chola kings who were the biggest who had the biggest conquest on the oceans. Now, that is the way that the question is going to be asked. Not exactly that someone will go on to ask you in that analytical manner why it was done and why it was not done. And you know why is it that this history has been camouflaged so that you always going to feel humiliated. But that is not the type of a question that can be asked here. So Mahendravarman will be one of them, which has been a lot of talk about Raja Mahendravarman from Kerala in this case. Then William Dalrymple, he released his book on India, and he talked about India that was of 400 BC and 1200 AD. Between that period, of course, this date is mistaken. After 2 or 3 years, you're going to find this date is also going to be changed. So, between 400 BC and 1200 AD, the whole of the world was only about India, India, and India. That is, people in Thailand, people in Indonesia, people in Singapore, people in Central Asia, people in Iran, people in China, everyone used to keep Indian names. Everyone used to worship Indian gods and goddesses. Everyone used to make an Indian type of architecture as well. Now, had it been written by some type of an Indian, an Hindu writer, maybe some people have talked about that he is a BJP supporter. This is how exactly most of the youth go on to think of it. But because it has been talked about by William Dalrymple, a British historian of sorts, with abundant amount of proof, and imagine it, he was another person who was all praised for Dara Shikoh. He was one of those persons who was all praised for Dara Shikoh as well. So, it's not that he praised this part, he praised some of the Mughal rulers also in this case. And some of the bestsellers, the books we are going to be talking about, some of the bestsellers had been talking about that is untold valors. That means the braveries that has never ever been talked about at all. And take an example, that is about Narasimha Dev. Now, Narasimha Dev from Odisha, he was the one who was responsible for defeating Turkish. A slight amount of knowledge on that. Then you talked about Durga Das Rathod. Now, he was the one person who was responsible for protecting Jodhpur from Aurangzeb. Now, Aurangzeb in history, that is in the previous governments, have been a philanthropist, so much so that a road has also been named after him. You can imagine the amount of insult that Indians are always going to be under it. So, protected it from that. Then you're going to pick up Suhal Dev. Suhal Dev was the one who defeated and killed Ghaznavi Salar Masood. Now, Ghazni was not able to move beyond a certain point. And why not to talk about Banda Singh? Now, Banda Singh general led 5 battles, and in all of these 5 battles, he was victorious. He was like that of Ahoms. Ahoms defeated Mughals not once, not twice, not thrice. Can you imagine? 17 times. 17 times was the number the Mughals were defeated by the Ahoms. And Mughals were never able to find a way into the home territory at all. Don't go to find these things mentioned in history at all. Now, this is something that is established. It has not been formally incorporated, but then there's absolutely no doubt about these aspects at all. There have been some doubts about maybe certain types of chronologies associated with history, that is the dates associated with it, but with respect to other of them, there is absolutely no doubt available at all. And that's the way that we're going to move ahead in this case. There are going to be a good number of questions that can possibly be asked with respect to concepts and mechanism as well. For example, one of these concepts that has been functioning very well has been that of a heat dome cloudburst. That's a concept. Now, supposing a heat dome is a topic that goes into strike the question setter and the person who goes to make the question, then how many things that he can go on to think of? What are the things that he can think of? One is what exactly is the mechanism, or where exactly is it that it happened for the first time, or maybe which was the reason that was most affected. So it was, of course, Vancouver, it was Canada, and the cities. So Vancouver was going to be one of them. And of course, some of these rocky mountain terrain regions associated with it, they were also going to be affected by that. That is a heat dome. And it was partly in Boston as well. Mechanism of heat dome, that is, it's an anticyclonic circulation and a warm pool of, I repeated it, that is a warm pool of air goes on to get itself confined by the jet stream. So if the jet streams are moving, this is how exactly that the air pool goes on to get itself confined in this region. And because it goes on to get itself confined, then heat starts building up, and the rays are not able to find themselves going up at all, not at all, and consequently, all of those heat rays that go up, they are trapped, and because they are going to be trapped up, the heat builds up in this region. A part of it. Pick up the case of cloudburst. The nature of the cloudburst. Why is it that some of these cloudbursts going to be taking place here? For example, in Mumbai, it took place from an 18-kilometer tall cumulonimbus cloud. In the Himalayan region, it was largely because of a forced uplift, not only by the mountains, but also by the buoyant air, hot air that was pushing it up. And then over and above there, the third cause is going to be, it is going to be sucked by the jet stream. So now all of these topics are going to be important in this case. There is going to be deep sea mining here. And how is it that deep sea mining can go to hold the clue for solving the puzzle of diseases in the years to come. And associated with it, river interlinking is spurred by Ken-Betwa. Now, when you are going to be talking about Ken-Betwa, then all the type of questions, the length of the canal, the nature of the canal, is it going to be completely biological, is it going to be mud filled, or is it going to be concrete? The size of it, the amount of water that is going to be flowing here, where exactly it is going to be helping, which region is it going to be helping, Bundelkhand or which other region? Then the volcanic eruption that took place in Etna, there were certain type of volcanic lightning that has been there. Now it was one of the first times that such type of a lightning had been observed. So that is a part of it. And asteroidal impact, that is what will happen, because there were two asteroids that came close to the Earth. So what will happen if an asteroid comes close to that of the Earth? So that is an impact. And then asteroidal landing as well. One of the Japanese instruments, we're going to call it a spaceship, you can go to call it, landed on an asteroid. Now the Japanese agency is called as JAXA, J-A-X-A, which is pronounced as Jaha. It's pronounced as a Jaha, not called as a JAXA. It's pronounced by this name, Jaha. So it has been that. What is asteroidal mining, and what exactly are the impacts of asteroidal mining? How is it that asteroidal mining goes on to function? Other concept is going to be that of poaching. So what exactly is poaching is? How is it that poaching goes on to affect the region, and what happens if poaching goes on to take place? And this poaching is going to be significant because of the release of a film, and that was Sherni. That was going to be one of them. Also because of the fact that there have been good number of poaching events that have been reported in the country. Now, question some of these things like that is, which are the most important animals that are going to be killed? Like deer, guar, wild pigs are going to be killed. They keep on getting killed, right? That's one. Then many species going to get hunted down below the population. That means they are not viable. Thereafter, they're going to become completely extinct. The third part is that when we're going to take a species out of a wildlife community, we are not sure what exactly the ultimate impact will be, because of the fact that we are not even aware of the overall amount of an impact that it will going to have, because of our little amount of knowledge about all of these things in this case. That's about one of them. Then you can go to pick up another topic, that is Arabian Sea tropical cyclone. Now recently the whole of Arabian Sea had been ravaged by two tropical cyclones, one after another, and the frequency of the tropical cyclone in the Arabian Sea had been increasing. So once you're going to pick up this topic, you will go to understand how many of these components. So why is it that it is increasing? The reasons behind the increase in it, that is going to be one. The second is going to be associated with frequency. Is it not that the frequency of these tropical cyclones hitting India? Cyclones used to be common, But hitting India has gone to become common. Areas affected in this case, all of these areas, is it going to be Maharashtra? Is it going to be some other territory, or is it going to be something else as well? Why is it that Mumbai used to be protected? What were the reasons that Mumbai used to be protected, and why is it that Mumbai is not protected now? Then all the tropical cyclones that affected the region and the sequence associated with it, the sequence of the tropical cyclone. So it may have been Tuate, before that, 221, 220, 219, 218, and so on. Close observational aspects associated with it, that we say when these cyclones hit it, is it that it was also aided by a storm surge, which is going to be one of those impacts of it. Which were the damaged areas? That is the areas. We are going to be talking about these areas. Which are the areas which have been damaged all in all. The track of the cyclone, maybe that you are going to be given in the map of 4 tracks of these cyclones, and you will be asked to locate. That is, how is it that these cyclones have moved? And the rescue operations. Why is it that the rescue operations have gone to become very easy right now? And why is it that these rescue operations were not so some time back? And which are the agencies associated with such type of rescue technology? Other than that, coming on to, we are going to be talking about unexplored areas of space, like liquid oxygen, methane engine, and so on. When you are going to be talking about space technology, one of those things that you are going to be talking about always is going to be that of hydrogen peroxide, ethanol as a propellant. We are going to be one of these components. That's one part. A green propellant infusion mission, GPIM, is what we're going to be calling it as. It has been used by SpaceX Falcon Heavy rocket, and some of these propellant blends like hydroxyl ammonium and nitrate, which is an oxidizer that allows it to burn. There is one part of it. So there have been a lot of innovations in space technology and the type of fuel that has been used. Second has been, we launched GSAT. Of course, it was not successful, but still, the payload of the GSAT, for example, it goes on to be having rich accretion telescope, phased array antenna, and flexible wearable X-ray detector that doesn't require toxic heavy metals. X-ray imaging is a very critical technique, and this is going to be one part associated with it. Not GSAT, but then in general, with all of them. So these are some of the things that the question setter will go to think of. And continuing with it, you can go to pick up some more challenges associated with it here. Like we are talking about liquid metal detector for prosthetic arms, that is going to be one. And then liquid metal sensors with artificial intelligence, where a good number of natural prosthetic arms that are going to be created, integrated photon sources on chips. Some technical questions can go to be asked in this case, and the use of CMOS integrated photon sources, which are going to be suitable for a lot of spectrums and quantum computers. They are new technologies, and these are, let's say, 4 technologies that we are talking about. A lot of new technologies that have been there that will be always in the minds of the question setter. And on India, you can be asked another of this question. What we have talked about so far is concepts, scientific concepts and other concepts. There can be some of these topics that will be completely on India, because the focus of policy makers and question makers now is going to more and more on India. And the concepts associated with it, take the case of one concept, Aranya. Aranya is it's the Sanskrit name, and its meaning is going to be forest. That is Aranya. And it says that no Brahman, no Karuna, no Ved, no knowledge. There is no Brahman, that is no knowledge, no Karuna. Karuna is one type of a love that you go on to shower on the people. No Ved, knowledge. That means you don't going to be having a knowledge of Ved, and it's like living in a forest. If you don't going to be having knowledge, if you don't going to be having empathy, if you don't go on to be having wisdom, you are living in a jungle. So the concept of jungle, and now in a jungle, you have Purush and Janwar. Now in Nagar, that is concept of jungle, that you have a Purush and Janwar. That means Purush is one who leads a settled life. Janwar is one who doesn't go to leading a settled life. Taliban are one. You're going to find Muslim invaders have been Janwar. And good number of these people living in India is still going to belonging to that ancestry. They are Janwars. Then in Nagar, there is no cooperation. In general, there is so much amount of a cooperation. You're going to find that social capital, like terrorists will going to build a very, very good social capital. Intellectuals don't going to build social capital. In general, there is cooperation. Now, this is a concept. That's an Indian concept. And if you're going to apply it, it applies so well. Then the concept of justice, nyaya. Take the case of a whatever. Let's say you have a case pending in High Court, Supreme Court, here or there. And if it is that is type of a case, there will be one of these days, you will going to say that I have got justice because the decision has been in your favor. Is it justice or is it judgment? Indians talk about justice. The Western philosophy goes on to talk about judgment. That's the basic difference. So, India is always favoring nyaya. That is one part. That's the narrative that India has. That we say that's the type of a narrative that Indian people go on to be having it, and they have established it for themselves. Then there is another component associated with it, and now it has been established that the two terms, religion and dharma, they are not the same. That's largely because religion goes on to be having a set of a protocol, and that is the Western notion. Dharma is something that is associated with your kartavya, something associated with your deed, something associated with something that you're going to do as a human being. That is a dharma. And some of these temples as well, like of late, a lot of things have been not reinterpreted, but that have been brought to light to the whole of the country. Like some of them started talking about that Mahabharata is a fiction, and it's nothing but a high or a low level fiction of sorts in this case. Then what the people did was that they showed the Chinakeshwar temple. And in Chinakeshwar temple, it was Bhishma Pitama who was on the arrow bed. It is only in this. When you're going to take a look at Chinakeshwar temple, you will be baffled, completely baffled at the type of architecture and art that you're going to see in this region. That is going to be another part. So that's component of it. Now, these are some of the concepts that is going to be talked about with respect to India. On geography, the topics are going to be associated with. That means, of course, the topics that will go to strike the minds of the examiner. For example, even if you're going to pick up Andaman Islands, let's say that we are going to be talking about Andaman Islands. In Andaman Islands, what are something that is very, very unique? The uniqueness is some of these islands like that of Narcondam, which going to be having a crater inside. That means it is rimmed from every side with a crater type of a look inside. That means, of course, from a different angle, you can go to take a look at it. That is, a radar can be set up in that place. A troop movement and a station can be set up in this place, which no one will be able to find it out. That is going to be uniqueness of the Andamans. Of course, uniqueness is going to be, other than that, is going to be in the form of what we say is closeness to that of Indonesia. Then Suez type of a canal in this case. All of these type of canals that we're going to be talking about, Suez Canal, and you can go to find not all type of a canal. It's not a Suez and Suez type of a canal. It should be Suez type of a canal, like Kra Canal, like the Panama Canal, like you're going to find a Midland Canal. These are the type of canals in this case. Now, our talk is that if the mishap has been on Suez, not exactly that a question will be asked on Suez. Any type of a canal like that of Suez will keep on striking the minds of the examiner, and that is how he'll go to pick it up. So supposing you are preparing Suez Canal, then you must go to prepare Kra Canal as well. You must go to prepare the characteristics of something like that of Panama Canal as well, something in Midland Canal as well, the New Canal as well, Don Canal as well, which are these type of canals, and Ems, Weser, Elbe Canal as well. How is it that they are going to be connected in this case, and what are the advantages? Now, for example, let's say some time back, some hundreds of years back, if you would have moved in English Channel, from English Channel you have moved all the way to Aral Sea only through canal and canal. Now, in a sense, if you are a bit curious, you can go to know that, and you can go to take it, you can take it forward as well. Other concept is going to be that of Southern Ocean. Southern Ocean, that is a new ocean that has been created. That means the topography of this ocean, the impact of this, and there will be a lot of questions on Antarctic. We have talked about that part, questions on Antarctic. And some of these questions that can be related to something like one of these lakes, which is going to be saltiest body of water in the whole of the world, inland, that is Don Juan Pond. That is a part of it. Then we are talking about Antarctic conveyor belt mechanism. How is it that Antarctic determines the climate of the whole of the world? The topography of the Southern Ocean, how many hidden volcanoes are going to be there, what will happen if we go on to remove the ice cover from Antarctic. These are all the components that are part of it. Then two of them, Miyawaki method of forest conservation or restoration, and not to talk about reunion and Diego Garcia. We have already talked about reunion. And Diego Garcia is significant because Mauritius have started raising its voice against the occupation of the British on Diego Garcia. But then logic doesn't go to work. Working in international relations, it's like might is right. Anyone who has the power, they are the one who going to rule it. That's the only rule that goes on to function in this case. We are talking about how is it that the type of questions that can go on to be asked with respect to reunion. Now, if you can go to, we have picked up a good number of such type of topics. So one of them is going to be, of course, reunion. Other is going to be Mount Soputan, Red Sea, the Drake Passage, and not to talk about the boundary. One of them is going to be Delhi, that is India and France. Both of them, they had some type of an exercise in Reunion Island. They conducted joint patrolling, and India's intent was to engage France in a friendly foreign partner and expanding its footprints in the Indian Ocean, focusing on a stretch between East African coastline and Malacca Strait. So far it has been focusing on Red Sea to Malacca Strait. I repeat it, Red Sea to Malacca Strait. Now it is thinking of expanding its footprint all the way from East African coastline to that of Malacca Strait. That is the way. Now, in trying to move from East African coastline to that of Malacca Strait, a lot of new things are going to be done in this case. And a lot of new developments have taken place, and a lot of new islands are going to be there as a part of it. That's number one. Second is you go on to pick up something like that, Mount Soputan, that is in Indonesia. That's a big news. We are going to be talking about that is in news. Red Sea, why is it that the Red Sea came up? Why is it? What will happen to Red Sea in the near future? Will it expand? Will it go on to break? What type of winds are going to blow in Red Sea? Are there coral reefs in Red Sea or not? Which are the littoral countries bordering Red Sea in this case or not? That is a part of it. Drake Passage, that is the winds that are found in this place. The glacials that are going to be found in the icebergs that you're going to find. Why is it that the wind velocity is very high? How is it that it has been named? To what extent Drake Sea can go on to have any type of a significance like that of a strategic significance? Now, these are some of the things that we are going to be talking about. And because there is always going to be one mate and checkmating with respect to Russia-Ukraine boundary. That is what we're going to talk of, Russia-Ukraine boundary. That is what we are going to be talking about when it comes to international relations. So something like a Sevastopol port. Sevastopol had been one of them. That is going to be one of the most strategic regions. Then Kerch Peninsula, Crimean Peninsula, the significance between both of them. That means anyone who goes on to think about Ukraine-Russia boundary, they're going to talk about what is the type of a boundary. It is a forced boundary, it is a political boundary, it's a cultural boundary, which are the type of languages that are going to be spoken on both the sides, which are the adjoining areas in this case, adjoining areas. That means, is it Sevastopol, is it going to be Kerch Peninsula, is it going to be Crimean region, maybe that we are going to be talking about what had been some of this history as well in this case. Now, this is the way. This is exactly the way that a question setter thinks of. Now, with respect to good number of topics, this topic can be endless, and we can go to keep on picking examples in this case. Our contention in this case is simple. Simple in the sense that is, our contention is only twofold. That is, once you are in a position to read the minds of the examiner, then when you read newspapers, when you pick up any topic, you will be able to imagine what type of a possible question that can be possibly asked from these places. That's number one. In what way is it that the examiner can think of? That is another way. And then in how many ways, that is the question setter can go to think of troubling you, trying to tease you, torment you. Mind it, prelims examination is not going to be very difficult once you go to know the tricks and the techniques of deciphering a topic, picking up a topic, and over and above, if you happen to know how is it that a question setter can go on to think about that topic, it goes on to become doubly easy for you. And I repeat it, it really goes on to become easy for you. It's only that this is one of the sections that you have to go through once, maybe twice, maybe thrice. It's going to be available to you on Tube. It's going to be for a general interest itself for you. And if you do not utilize it, and some of these questions are going to be asked from it, there will be only one person to blame for it if you have not learned it. And that will be you yourself.
To have more such discussions and analysis, subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon for notifications on our upcoming videos.